Iguodala to Curry, back to Iguodala, up to the layup. Oh, blocked by James. Touchdown with a new shot clock.
Oh, great no-look to Zizic, who puts it home.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Touchdown, Ohio State.
Curry has to back off as James throws it down.
Struck him out looking. That's his 10th strikeout of the night.
Braxton Miller is loose. Spin move! Miller headed for the end zone!
Edwin drills it. Deep left. It is gone, and the Indians win it.
Smith, alley-oop to James. Wow.
He's thinking of off initially. He's going to take a shot. Has Samano under it. Has his man Kaiser. Perfectly thrown pass to Gordon. Touchdown, Cleveland.
I want to apologize to Buccaneers. I followed my heart, not my head. I fell short in pursuing full information because at each juncture, I gave Zach Smith the benefit of the doubt.
Welcome on into a Thursday edition of the Real Sports Talk Show. Like always, I am Paul, and like always, my co-host,
Kevin.
Mr. Kevin Rosser. We have a great show planned for you today, as last night the ruling came down on Urban Meyer, which I will actually, in my opinion, say the unofficial ruling. We have tons of stuff to bring to you about what happened, tons of reactions from just not only social media, but listening to radio today, and just the kind of just seeing everybody how they reacted to this from an Ohio State fan point, from a national fan point, or just from a college standpoint. There's tons of reactions, and honestly, to me, this is just a ticking time bomb until this fully erupts, because I don't think this is far from over. Rosser, he went through and he ended up reading the entire report while I was at work today. So Rosser's got some cold, hard facts to bring to you. So Rosser, let's go ahead and start it off. Urban with the 3-game suspension, and Gene Smith, the athletic director, also a suspension.
Yes, I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what Gene Smith's
His
the length of
is till September 19th or something,
which is about
some stupid thing.
It's about the same length as Urban's. Head football coach Urban Meyer will be suspended for the first 3 games of the season against Oregon State, against Rutgers, and against number 16 TCU,
which is at a neutral site.
It is a neutral site game. It's tough to lose them for those 3 games, but that is the least of our worries right now, because this whole saga has unfolded over the last not only just the last several weeks, but just the last couple days. Last night in particular, with the 23-page report. If you haven't had a chance to look it over or at least read some cliff notes from it, it's almost as thorough as it could possibly be. There are perhaps some details that might have been glossed over or missing.
Now, before you get into that, I want, before the ruling, what did you want?
I wanted it clear-cut one way or the other. I was hoping...
no, just for Urban. What did you want for Urban?
I wanted Urban to either...
Because honestly, I don't want to sound rude here, but I don't give a flying hell what happens to Gene Smith or anybody else other than Urban Meyer.
I wanted Urban Meyer to either resume head coaching duties immediately or be fired immediately. I wanted it to be clean-cut one way or the other.
You wanted the right decision, though. No matter what, you wanted the right decision. Whatever was going to happen, you wanted the right answer.
And based on everything in that report, 3 games just doesn't cut it to me.
Now, I was going to say, going after the report, you went through, you got the report, you read the entire report.
Yes.
Did you see the press conference with Urban?
I went back and watched a clip of it. I've read some quotes from exactly what he said.
So you got everything you want.
Mm-hmm.
What is your Reaction. Now I don't need a whole long reaction. What is your reaction? You don't agree with it?
No, I don't agree with it, and I'm shocked and I'm disappointed.
Do you feel like you got the right answer? Were you given the right answer?
I was given all the information was given. Not all of it, but a good bit of it, enough to make an informed decision, and I feel that informed decision was not thoroughly carried out by Ohio State. As much as of a fan as I am of the program, as much of a fan as I've been of Urban Meyer and his tenure and the playing style that he's shown, the players that he's coached up through and gone to the pros in the last several years, I don't like him coming back in week 4 of the season. With all that said, I honestly feel that he.
What was so bad? What like, I want to hear. I don't need point after point after point. I just what did he do wrong, or what did he? Because my opinion, and I was listening to the radio a lot today, and everybody who was calling in that was either for or against it or with it, I could completely understand what your argument is. If you wanted him fired, I completely understand. If you didn't want him fired, I completely understand. I think, and now I think me and you can agree with at this point, that a suspension was the worst thing you could do.
Yes.
Now, my reason for that is because the NCAA is going to come in and they're going to investigate the living shit out of this. And this whole story is far from over. That's my opinion. The NCAA is coming in. This story is about to get blown the hell up, and there are way more things. And am I the only person right now that thinks that Brett McMurphy is just holding on to that one last bullet? He still has one more in that chamber. He was waiting for the ruling to come down on Urban Meyer, and I bet he still has another bullet in that chamber that he's going to use, and this whole investigation is going to skyrocket. And my opinion, now I said at the beginning of the show, I said, I don't care what happens with everybody else. The reason why I say that is because Zach Smith has already been fired. There's nothing else for him to get other than arrested, go to jail. There's nothing for the girl because everything's already all done. Everything that was going on is all about Urban Meyer, Gene Smith. In my opinion, and I am for sure about to get Rosters on this because Rosters got all the facts. He read the report. My opinion is if he reported it, if he did some kind of reporting, if he did what he was supposed to do, and I'm not saying, that he did outside of what he was supposed to. I'm just saying as long as he did what he was supposed to do, and he reported, he did, what he had to do, I don't care. If he, go ahead, keep coaching, don't fire him. But if you have distinctive, now I'm not saying just assume, because you can assume things and it can go very wrong. I'm saying that if you just went and you looked at it and you're like, he was covering it up, but we're going to keep him, we're just going to suspend him, you got to fire him. I'm a huge Urban Meyer fan. I have Ohio State freaking tatted on me. And I respect the hell out of the college. But you do not keep a head coach around who's hiding a domestic violence. You do not keep a head coach around and an athletic director if they knew everything that was going on. And this goes deeper than just a head coach because the Ohio State University is bigger than Urban Meyer. The football program is bigger than Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is the number 2 coach in the college right now. The university is way bigger. You're going to have coaches way bigger than him. Once this campus, the college is going to be around long after Urban is gone. Long after we're gone, it's still going to be around. So that was my opinion on this. I think that you either do the right thing or you cover it. And right now I feel like they're covering it. And it's not like covering like Urban needs to lose his job. I think that it was just very poorly presented to everyone.
It's funny you mentioned, the cover-ups and did they do enough. I want to give as brief of a breakdown as possible because you can only condense 23 pages into so much information in the short time that we'll provide.
It just sucks knowing that you want a guy fired who for something that has really nothing to do with him other than the fact that he didn't do a background check on Zach Smith.
Well, here's the thing.
And that leads into years now.
Here's the thing. This all started with Earl Bruce, a legendary Ohio State head coach. He took over for Woody Hayes after he left, after infamously punching that player.
Clothesline. Did not punch.
That being said,
I got you, Woody.
Urban Meyer was an assistant. He was a graduate assistant for Bruce at Ohio State and later a wide receivers coach under him at Colorado State. Zach Smith happens to be the grandson of Earl Bruce. Earl Bruce is one of Urban's biggest mentors from a coaching standpoint.
So, and also, one thing I would like to touch on, and I was hoping you would bring that up because I actually forgot if it was a grandson or nephew. What Rosser just said right there, Zach Smith is a nobody. All he did was know someone. And that's all you have to do is know someone.
And know someone, be related to someone. And in 2009, while Urban was still head coach at Florida, there was an altercation between Zach Smith and his wife, Courtney. Wife at the time, I should say. There was a dispute about another female staying at the house after a party. Allegedly Smith grabbed his then wife by the shirt, pushed her up against the wall. She was pregnant at the time. Police were called. He was arrested. No charges were ever filed. But that's kind of where it began. Now, Urban gets hired in November of 2011 to be Ohio State's head coach. And he wants to bring in Zach Smith to be wide receivers coach again, like he was at the University of Florida. During Ohio State's background check, I can't remember the exact language, they either did not ask for or did not have the ability to ask for arrest records on potential hires. And Urban's first mistake in this whole saga was not disclosing that Zach Smith was arrested in 2009. Like I said, no charges filed. Everything seemed to be smooth up until 2015. There are a couple incidents in between, though. He was arrested for an OVI in 2013, but apparently Urban Meyer and Gene Smith did not know at the time. And Gene Smith did not know about the 2009 incident until all of this started coming to light recently in July. There's instances of Zach Smith, being caught in strip clubs on recruiting trips with other coaches.
The guy was a wild motherfucker. That's all it comes down to.
He was wild.
He was taking nudes in the freaking White House. He was sending sex toys to the facilities at Ohio. I mean, the guy's a fucking loser.
He was having an affair with a secretary
he's a
in the
loser.
offices.
He's a freak. He's a loser.
Now it starts.
Anybody who beats a girl, you're a fucking loser.
It gets interesting again in 2015 because Courtney begins divorce proceedings around this time, but also due to this, Zach Smith begins to unravel a bit. He starts showing up to practices and meetings either drunk or high or both or late or going missing when he should be going on recruiting trips or having meetings with his wide receivers. All these things going on, and on top of all that, there's an investigation that starts in late 2015 by the Powell Police Department and Delaware County. So not only the city that he lives in, but the county, the sheriff, pretty much everyone in that local area is looking into this guy to make sure that he's not doing what he's not supposed to be, that he's not assaulting his soon-to-be
in your
ex-wife.
opinion, right now, by everything that you're saying, in your opinion, does Urban Meyer need to be... Does this have anything to do with him? This is in the authorities' hands. Does this have anything to do with him?
I think it absolutely has something to do with him because it's somebody that he's employing.
Now, what... And I'm not disagreeing with you. I think it does have to do with him. That is an employee that is not... And, these are 22-year-old, 21-year-old, 18, 19-year-old kids. They're stupid. And you're putting a coach like that in front of them and saying, this is your mentor. This is your wide receiver coach. Now...
It's amazing that Michael Thomas
came
to the draft with that guy.
During that time, do you think Urban Meyer, knowing what he knows at that time, what does he do? What is his decision?
Well,
You have the authorities already investigating it, and at that time now, because Gene Smith knew about it, because Gene Smith in 2015 called Zach Smith and told him to come home from one of the road games because the investigation was starting, and they needed him there. Mm-hmm. So what if you're Urban Meyer while all this is going on? What do? You keep going. It's the middle of your season.
Well, here's the interesting part, because the police did contact a woman who I can't remember what her exact position was. I think it had to do with Title IX protections with women's sports or something like that. She was contacted. I believe it was a Ms. or Mrs. Willis. She then turned around, tells athletic director Gene Smith, who then turns around and tells Urban. Urban calls up Zach Smith. They have a big sit-down, a confrontation, if you will, another warning, and that's one of a string of warnings.
I agree with all of that, though, because you're in the middle of a football season. You have the authorities investigating it, and now everybody's finding out. And Urban told him, if I find out you beat her ass, you will be fired. If the authorities never charged him, how is Urban supposed to fire somebody if there's no if the authorities there was conclusive evidence that he was beating his wife, even though the girl's mom even said that she's lying, that's not a big thing at all, but the authorities are looking into this. You have an entire county looking at this, but for some reason no charges are being filed, but this guy needs to be fired.
And then
continue.
I'll get into a side tangent about that in a second, but back to the timeline a bit. So Urban finds out about this, and after multiple warnings about numerous other infractions that we've brought up, he doesn't turn around and do what, in his contract, it alludes what he should have done. And
what is that?
And that's to... I can't remember the exact...
Because he's not the FBI. He's not a sheriff. So I want to know what it is that he needs to do. And I'm not saying this in a bad way. I'm just saying I would love to know what you want. And I understand the level that Urban Meyer's on, and he's the number 2 coach in the country, blah, blah, blah. But he's not a cop. He's not a FBI agent. He has no authority to, and, he can fire anybody at any time. So, yeah, you could fire him, but what is firing him going to do? Because, honestly, if you're firing Zach Smith, the guy's already a fucking nut job. You fire him, he could go home and kill his fucking wife for all you know.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is there was a system in place within his contract where he was supposed to file a formal written report about incidents that I believe I have the exact quote of what he should have said. It's
I just think it's a joke.
He has an obligation to report if someone, quote, has violated, is likely to violate, or may potentially have violated any laws, policies, rules, or regulations that go against the values of the Ohio State University. And he has an obligation to report that to the athletic compliance department at Ohio State and one other department that I neglected to jot down. So he's supposed to file 2 separate reports when he learns about this ongoing investigation. But because he learns the news because of 2 different reasons. One, because he hears the news through his athletic director, and 2, because there are no formal criminal charges brought forward, it's just a pending investigation. He doesn't feel the obligation to report it, and that has been the thing that you've been arguing, with it. And that is the thing that Urban argued, is that it's his decision. There's no criminal indictment yet, therefore I don't feel obligated to report. And that's where I respectfully disagree, because oftentimes in cases, and this is the tangent that I was holding off on, all too often victims of domestic violence feel, rightfully so, threatened to come forward. And I know you're gonna get into this whole Dr. Phil thing, but it's a serious point. And that whether these things happened or not, it's hard for someone in that situation to come forward with what they think is wrong. And But for Urban to lay on the excuse of, oh, there's nothing that's been charged yet, instead of saying, I want to get out in front of this. I want to make sure that I'm not the one that's left look stupid. I'm not the one that's going to be left in front of a podium answering questions in a couple of years.
Why does that come on to him though? He's not a cop. It's already in the cop's hands.
But it's
what does he do? What do you want him to do? He's going to turn in these papers to who? The cops? Oh, okay. Hey, we're going to start an investigation that we already started.
No, he's turning it into the university. So
and what are they going to do?
They're going to launch their own independent.
They're going to go to the cops, who the cops already know. And the cops are going to say, well, you guys need to launch an investigation. What does the investigation do? The investigation needs to be done by the fucking cops. The police need to do their job. And if this lady, and I will say this over and over and over and over again to anybody out there, you're getting your ass beat by somebody, either boy or girl, because don't tell me it don't happen to guys. I understand girls say this all the time. It don't happen to guys. It happens to guys. Something happens, you report it. I understand there are many cases where people are too scared to report stuff. I understand that stuff. But for somebody to continue to keep saying that it's happening, and it's going over, what year are we in right now? What year are we in right now?
2018.
What year did it first happen?
I guess you could say 2009.
And this shit is still going, and she just now got a divorce? She was a stupid ass for going with them in the first place.
But it's something that's also it's picked up recently as well. Within the last couple years, there have been multiple incidents that have been reported of him trespassing on her new property.
And that's
drunk.
And guess what? And once again, for the 100th time, the frickin' police have failed again. If you are not allowed to be on the property, guess what? You get arrested. You're drunk and you're not supposed to be on the property? Tase his ass. I don't give a shit. You have to do something as a police force. This is not Urban Meyer. This is not the fucking organization of Ohio State. This is all on the police if everybody knew about it.
It's not all on the police.
What happens if I beat your ass right now? You're going to call the cops. Mm-hmm. What are they supposed to do? They're supposed to come and arrest my ass after they get the story and they see that you got bruises on you. If they show up and you have nothing on you, or you have a couple bruises and you just say, well, he beat my ass, and I sit here and I keep telling you, no, I didn't do nothing, they're going to start an investigation, because they're not just going to say, well, it's a he said, she said. They can go ahead and start the investigation, but you're going to sit here and you're going to go, well, I want everybody who was in this house, to start investigating this. I want everybody in here, but I want everybody in here to also start doing written reports. What in the hell does this person have to do with if the cops have already been here, gotten the stories, and they're launching their investigation? What you're telling me right now is you do not even have full commitment. And I'm not saying just here. I'm saying at Ohio State. I'm saying anywhere in the country. You do not have commitment to your law enforcement or anybody else. Because if you're telling me right now that the first step that anybody, and because honestly this is what's going on, is that everybody thinks Urban needs to be fired because the police did not do their job. So I don't understand where that comes off. People want this guy fired because the police did not do their job and did not arrest him.
Well, they also want him fired because, and this circles back to a couple more points.
You can't say that, there's things about this, and this, because Urban can't just walk up and fire somebody because he thinks that this guy's beating his wife. If there was clean, conclusive evidence that he knew, you need to fire Urban Meyer right the hell now. There is no way in hell you can have a coach on your team that is beating the shit out of his wife. No way in hell.
But you also don't think that he gave Zach Smith the benefit of the doubt for being Earl Bruce's grandson? You don't think he gave him the benefit of the doubt?
Jesus Christ, he gave him a job at Florida, which at the time was a number 3 team in the country. They have a couple national championships. And then he said, all right, well, fuck it. I'm going to go ahead and bring you on to Ohio State. But you know why he did? Because there is no criminal charges on the guy. There is only... Well, we think that later on he might be getting this.
He was arrested several times.
Okay, and you can get arrested anytime you can get arrested, But unless you're being charged on it, what are you getting in trouble for?
But it's the fact that there's several other things that I want to bring up before we wrap things up. Obviously, the big elephant in the room that we haven't talked about yet is his press conference at Big Ten Media Days, which is literally the day after he fired
that was a
Zach
shit
Smith.
show.
It was one of the most embarrassing moments in Ohio State history to see him stand up there and say, let me bring up the quote.
I don't care that he lied, because every coach lies, but if it just, like I said, it all comes down to if he knew what was going on, then he needs to be fired. That's all it comes down to. I don't care about him lying at media day, but if he got fired the day before, Zach Smith. So Urban did his job. He fired him, but he did it late. I'll give him that.
And he did do it too late, and he let it get out of his hands, and it was a full 3 days until after the reports got out on social media that they recognized that these were out, and then they actually did something about it. That was one of the main things. And then another thing, on August 1st, when
this is all 2018 now.
On August 1st, when the messages between Shelly, Urban's wife, and Courtney, Zach's ex-wife, when those came out saying that Courtney sent pictures and texts saying, this is what's going on, I'm afraid for my life, and to think that Shelly doesn't convey that at all to Urban,
I agree with that.
It's completely fishy. Just not as fishy though, as apparently one of Urban's assistant coaches,
who's no longer with the team.
He's no longer with the team either. He went up to Urban that day and says, this story broke. Your wife's texts with Zach's ex have come out, and Urban is furious. And they get into this discussion. Okay, well, how can we hide this? And then it gets brought up of you can have messages older than a year removed from your phone, and that is the biggest scarlet flag, if you will, that can be raised in this situation, because once you start deleting messages on your phone, no matter what it's about, then you just open the floodgates to say, well, what else could have been deleted? What other violations could have been hidden by Urban Meyer just by doing that alone? Not even related to this case. And the investigative committee said that they took in a lot of evidence that wasn't related to this case, and they decided not to use it on a promise of confidentiality, which, if you're the NCAA, if you're an investigator for, college athletics, and you see that and you go, really? So you have messages that weren't related to Zach Smith, but you didn't think to, record them in any way, to consider them in any way.
Why is it she went to her? Why didn't she just go to the police with?
So she did.
With these pictures and all this?
No, yes, she did.
Okay, so why was he not arrested right on the spot and charged?
But this isn't a discussion about...
No, I just want to know.
I don't know.
If she's so scared and she's afraid to tell people, but she can tell Urban Meyer's wife, why is it she has these pictures of bruises and stuff, right? That would be what the pictures are, right?
I believe so.
I don't want to speculate, but I would imagine if she's saying she's getting her ass beat and she's sending pictures of somebody, it's bruises. So there's the evidence right there for the police. Why can't she show that to police?
I believe that she did.
Then that's right there. The police have failed again.
I'm not saying that they didn't, though. I'm saying that Urban did not do enough. He should have absolutely filed a formal report and made sure that every single person that could do something about it, be it at the university or outside of the university, could do something about it. But even so, if you're hearing this as Urban Meyer did in late 2015, and you're hearing this investigation going on, how do you not immediately just suspend the guy altogether for the rest of the year?
I agree with that.
And until something is established and the story has
But
run its course.
and that's why everything that you're saying right now, and now and that's why I'm saying, like, I've heard people call in today, blah blah blah. I can agree with every side of the story, other than the fact that people, if you're out there listening and you're really honest right now, and you hear that all this stuff went on and the police knew, I do not, in my mind, I do not think that Urban Meyer should be in trouble. I understand if you're out there and you want to say Urban needs to be fired, he knew about this, that Urban needs to be fired because he did not fire him, because he did not suspend Zach Smith, because he did not do any of the stuff with Zach Smith. I can agree with that. But to say that he needs to be fired just because of this, no, that's a fucking joke. That's a damn joke, because Urban Meyer didn't need to be fired for any of that. Urban Meyer did exactly what he had to do other than fire him. And I honestly don't, and like Urban said, he did not feel, and honestly, if everybody knew about that, I think the college itself should have said, Urban, there's a investigation going on right now with your wide receivers coach, who might be getting a domestic violence. He might be getting charged with that. We're going to let him go because we know what's going on.
And here's the thing. The athletic director, Gene Smith, instructed Urban on multiple occasions.
I think Gene Smith needs to be fired, not Urban.
I think if anything, you have to have both stay or both leave, because Gene Smith ultimately, I don't know exactly how the coaching structure would have worked, but you got to think that Gene Smith can do something to get rid of Zach Smith if he really thought he was that much of a problem.
He can fire him. He's got the ability.
But the fact that on multiple occasions, Urban Meyer was told by the athletic director of his college, this guy is a problem. He's showing up to meetings late and drunk, and he's doing all this nefarious stuff, and whether Urban knew about the office stuff is in contention, but to have this guy under investigation and doing all this negative stuff to affect the image and the players of our team, and to look at that and go, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He hasn't been charged yet, but overwhelming evidence, not related directly to the case, but overwhelming evidence of him being a negative influence on the team, to look at him and not let him go as soon as you feel naturally possible and wait until just a few weeks ago to do so, I think it's beyond comprehension.
I agree with you on that. I agree. And when I'm sitting here thinking about this, you have all the, these, he's getting arrested, blah, blah, blah. You just told me, though. You said, well, Gene Smith goes up to Urban and says, this guy's missing this, he's doing that. He's under investigation. Why is he still on your staff? And if I'm Urban Meyer, my answer, I would say, well, why are you not firing him? Why? And I'm not saying that as Urban should be shying away. I'm just saying if Gene Smith thought it was such a big deal that was going on, which it's not like it's not a big deal. I'm not trying to cover that. I'm just saying if he thought it was such a big deal, then why didn't Gene Smith just take control? Why is Gene Smith just sitting on the back burner? And I understand that's why he's being suspended too, is because he didn't say he didn't fire him, he didn't do anything. But if you have all these people that know about this, all these people know about it, and the cops know about it, and I would imagine students, players know about it, coaches know about it. I understand that Urban Meyer is still the head coach of Ohio State, but why is it still all on him? The police are investigating it. The whole school knows it. Why is it only on him?
Well, that's the thing. The whole school didn't know it because he didn't report it formally. A few staff members knew. The athletic director knew. The woman that took the call from the police, she knew.
Who knew? So when did Gene Smith find out about this stuff? Did they say
he found out in 2015 when it was directed through?
Then Gene Smith right then and there. Same with Urban. When Urban found out about it, they both should have reported it. And that's all it comes down to. And that's why I'm saying I can agree with he needs to be fired. I can agree with he doesn't need to be fired.
But I think we can both agree that being wishy-washy about it, suspending him for 3 games...
It's bullshit. It's stupid because the NCAA is on their doorstep right now.
Typically, when you want to sweep something under the rug, you don't do a half-ass job about it. You don't leave stuff sticking out of the rug for people to walk over it and trip on and say, oh, what's that? And then pull the rug.
Right,
and there's this whole big mess that you've been hiding this whole time, and now it's just going to make yourself look even worse. It's one of the darker days in Ohio State football history, and
it's a joke.
I hoped that this investigation would have put an end to it one way or the other, but clearly this is a saga that will continue, and
it's far from over,
and perhaps tarnish this season and seasons moving forward over the next couple of years.
I think you hit the nail right on the head. It's terrible. It's a terrible look for the organization. I heard many people calling in today on the radio saying, well, what if this was at another school? We would be calling for their head. And it's true. People are calling for Urban Meyer's head all over the country. And that is completely why I'm saying, I can see both sides of the story. And I'm looking at it from a fan. I'm looking at it from a football fan, not just an Ohio State fan. And that's why, I can agree with he doesn't need to be fired, and I can agree with he needs to be fired. And honestly, in my full opinion, I really thought, I guaranteed it yesterday that he was going to be fired. I thought for sure he was going to be fired. And I'm not sitting here saying, oh, well, it's great for the organization that he's not fired, blah, blah, blah. Because, honestly, it is good that he's not, because he's a very damn good football coach. But it looks terrible on him. And honestly, just if you guys are going to do a meeting all day long, you better make sure that you guys come out with everything that you need to have answered. Because for you guys to release the report after a press conference, the reporters didn't even know what was going on. They just started questioning and they said, okay, well, he's suspended 3 games, and they just went off of that. They didn't even read the report until after the press conference.
Yeah,
so now Urban Meyer's not even getting any of the questions until he comes back from the suspension.
Yeah, and the SB Nation Ohio State sub-site, if you will, that published the story that I found the report on, it was published at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So clearly this was something that they meant to release after the fact and say, you guys decipher this. We did what we thought we could.
They opened up the press conference with, we've been in here all day, we're tired, let's get this going.
Yeah, that's sad. That was the whole vibe going through, and it was telling. It was very telling. The last thing that Urban said, the last question that he took was something along the lines of, if you had something to say to Courtney right now, what would it be?
I hated that stupid question. I thought that was so stupid.
As stupid,
terrible
as
question.
Stupid and as loaded as it might have been, it was a worse response, because he said something along the lines of,
he has nothing to do with it.
I feel bad for this
situation. For all the people that are in the situation.
Yes.
And the person who asked it, you're an ass. I don't think, because one, if you're, what was the girl's name? Courtney?
Courtney, yes.
If you're Courtney, one, you've been hiding all this whole time because you've been afraid to come to it. And now you're just, you're getting all these questions. Well, what do you have to say to her? There's nothing to say to her. If she's been getting her ass beat this whole time, there's nothing to say to her. She's already gotten she's divorced. She's out of that situation. There's nothing to say. Saying I'm sorry to her, and for Urban to say I'm sorry, that does nothing. None of that means anything to her. Him saying I'm sorry, she's just going to laugh at. Anybody saying I'm sorry because they didn't do anything, she's just going to laugh at. She don't give a shit. And if I was her, I wouldn't give a shit. Urban Meyer apologizing to her does nothing. Gene Smith apologizing does nothing. Zach Smith apologizing does nothing. You let her be. You let her deal with this the way she wants to. They need to quit asking questions about her and just let her live her life. That's it. That's all I have to say about that. I'm tired of hearing about her and these questions. And I understand, it's all about, her and Zach Smith fighting, beating her up and stuff. But if she's already been through all of this, don't keep putting her through it. That's just stupid. That's terrible. Don't. If she wants to forget about it because this is clearly a dark part in her past, don't keep bringing it up. Let her continue, because I would imagine she probably was watching it or will watch it. Just let it go and just carry on. Keep everything towards them, whatever you guys got to ask, but don't keep bringing her up into it. Bring Zach into it before you bring her back into it, because one of the worst things that you can do is bring somebody into a situation that they did not want to be in anyways. Not to mention that she was hiding it because she was so scared to bring it out. So, that's my opinion. Rosser, we have hit our timeline. I got to go because I have softball. Rosser. End the show.
Thanks for checking us out. This was a bit longer than we thought, but it's important that we hit every single point that we could. There's plenty of stuff that was in the report that I wanted to touch on, but it's just treading water. It's just touching on redundant points at this point in time. The final verdict, Urban Meyer being suspended for the first 3 games. From a football standpoint, it's going to be tough having him out for the TCU game, but from a overall standpoint, it's going to be a rough season, both on and off the field, and it's one that the state of Ohio and the country will not forget anytime soon.
Well, like always, for Rosser and for Foisey, who's doing all of our editing and getting all our videos up, continue to subscribe to our YouTube, continue to follow and check out all of our social media like always. But for Foisey and for Rosser, this was the Real Sports Talk Show, and we will see you again.
Final seconds. It's over. It's over. Cleveland is a city of champions once again.
Swings and drives it. Deep right field. Goal!
James, heads Meyer, ball game! He did it! LeBron James wins it for Cleveland!
Francisco Lindor wins it with a 3-run home run.
Second career walk-off homer for Francisco Lindor as the Indians win for the fourth time in 5 games, taking it 5-2. Lindor with his fourth straight multi-hit game. He finishes with 2 hits, 3 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. Brandon Geyer with 2 hits and scores a run. Clevenger a solid outing. He gets a no decision, allowing just the run in 7 frames.